I've actually been blessed in the sense that I think word of mouth has low-key been my like strongest marketing point. And they always say like word of mouth is actually the best marketing, because rather than me shoving an ad in your face, having a mate come up to you and be like, "Oh, I got my song done at DINJE studio, it's on a studios," then it makes them more inclined to come hit me up. So obviously there's word of mouth, and then my second strongest point of marketing for me has been Instagram. Um, Started an Instagram account fresh, like separate from my personal and my music, and then yeah, that's just kind of grown itself. And then what I do is like every time artists are in the studio, I end up posting stories of them and stuff, like what they're doing in the studio, and they repost that to their account. And I think that's how like this huge influx of like people came to my Instagram. And then also just I had a few photo shoots at the studio, and then I got one of my videographer mates just to make like a studio ad. But no, I haven't got to the point where I've had to actually sponsor any posts or invest in advertising just yet, but I'll get around to that soon. Yeah, so 100%. It's crazy now that they're like a few years ago in Perth, there was barely any hip hop, especially like just hip hop studios. Whereas these days, there's about 4 or 5 of us all competing for the same clientele base, I guess you could say. I'm lucky in the sense that I also do mastering. I think a lot of these other studios, they do recording and mixing, but not all studios offer mastering, which I've noticed. So even if like a competitor or whatever gets the client, a lot of the time I'll end up getting the master. So even though it's competition, it's nearly like they're also my work peers, weirdly, because they'll refer me. Like another studio in Perth, like they use me as their mastering engineer basically. So even though they get the mix or they get the recording, I end up getting the job anyway, just as the mastering engineer. Other ways I compete, I guess, is just like we all offer different sounds, I think, like, you know, sonically or whatever. And then I've got my own style of mixing that some people prefer over other styles. So separates you. Yeah, it's weird. There are competitors, but I don't feel like I'm trying to like shoot down the other studios or anything, you know. It's not like a toxic competitor kind of, yeah. Like all the sound engineers in Perth kind of, we all talk, man. Like we're cool with each other in that sense. And I think at the moment there's enough fish to go around for all of us, I guess, you know what I mean? There's enough business for all of us to survive. So yeah, but mainly I think mastering is what like has kind of separated me from some of the other studios. Yeah, like I'm doing stuff as an artist, but like being real between me and you, I guess that doesn't pay my bills, being, you know, like being DINJE the artist. That's why I run the studio. Nah, like I'm blessed that studio income is now my full-time income and has been for basically 2 years now. So yeah, like my whole income runs off the recording, mixing and mastering services I provide. It's been cool because I think other like younger or like aspiring sound engineers who kind of see what I'm doing at the moment, it makes it just look viable. It makes it like a possibility that like if that guy's making money off doing that full time, then maybe I can too. And it's dope. Like I've got Dicey in from SAE at the moment doing work experience with me, and it's been cool. It's cool getting to pass on knowledge and then just also have another set of ears in the studio. But yeah, like I try to, obviously like I've got paying clients, so I can't let Dicey do everything, but I've been trying to like just like let Dicey do what he can in the studio to learn some things, and I'll be behind like, oh, just try this, or try like, have you thought about approaching it this way? So yeah, and then just through being on the gram, and I'm always happy to help. Like if people message me and questions about audio engineering or anything, I'm not the type to like hold my knowledge. I'm always down to share knowledge, you know. I kind of let the market decide that, to be honest, man. Like I guess I could have my own view on what I think my art's worth, but at the end of the day, what people are willing to pay is what it's worth, because it's not up to me to decide. It's up to my consumer, like the customers and the clients, to decide that. So it comes back to simple economics. Like when I first started, I was cheaper because the demand wasn't as high, and as the demand's gotten higher and higher, you just put your prices up accordingly. And then if people are still willing to pay at that price, you're there. And then if you put your price up to a certain degree where it's like no one's willing to pay that, then I guess you're not, it's not worth that, you know what I mean? And then I'm lucky I've had some like big records I've worked on over the last year, like Triple J placements, Nova placements, Spotify playlist placements. So like all that, once you have that under, you know, what's the word? Once you have like big songs under your portfolio, you can raise your prices too. So like I mastered the 88 Yami song, My City, which would be the biggest hip hop record to come out of the city this year. I think they just hit 400K on Spotify in like think it took him 4 or 5 months, and I was a master engineer on that. So now I've mastered the biggest hip hop song to come out of Perth this year. So with my name on the mastering engineer, people that ups your rates. You know what I mean? Because you can prove, well, you're paying this, but there's a reason. Like, you're paying this. I've got this portfolio and work behind me that proves that I'm worth what I'm asking for, I guess. Whereas if you don't have any like accolades or any big, stats or anything, it's hard to justify people paying that. So you just work your way up to it, man. I guess coming from a student point of view, or even like you said, just beginning, even if you're not a student, but you're just about to get into it, everyone starts doing free jobs, I guess, to get that experience. Like, you might mix a record for a friend or record a friend for free, and that's all cool. And then hopefully that will get them to go tell someone about you. But it's got to get to the stage where you need to be confident in your ability to be like, what I do is worth a payment. So how I started was like, I started on, I think the first paid job I ever did was $25 an hour. Because for me, as long as this audio stuff was making as much as I could go get it, like a 9 to 5 job, like a minimum wage job, I was never going to work for less than a minimum wage job, because there's no you may as well just go work the minimum wage job then. So yeah, you started off at $25 an hour, and then I upped my rates to $35 an hour. And I think the main key to it is literally just start by actually charging people. That's how you get your foot in the door. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot, but you just need to make that jump where you stop doing like free experience work and be like, no, I want to get paid for this job now. So yeah, just start charging, basically, is the best way to actually get your foot in the door. And you're never going to start off at like $80 an hour. You got to start low and build your way up. And then with each paid job you do, you'll gain experience, and you also gain reputation. Like, that song will go out and someone will be like, oh, that was a dope mix, who did that? And then you get more clients, more demand. And like I was saying before, supply and demand, the more demand, you can start to up your price. And same with reputation. The more records that you've worked on that have done well can start to up your price. So yeah, the best way to get your foot in the door is literally by like doing your first paid job, and from there on out, your foot's already in the door, is getting money for this, and then just grow it from there. Interesting question, because I don't really regret anything I've done to this point in time, in the sense that I'm making full-time money off this now. So I guess all the steps that younger me did still put me in the right position. I could have possibly got into it at a younger age, essentially. Like, it's hard to say though, because at the time it's not what I wanted. Like, I could have been charging people from as young as 17 before I even came here, maybe, because like I learned to mix before I was at SE, and then I just worked on that here. And yeah, I could have started doing it younger, maybe. Like, I guess, yeah. What would I do differently? Yeah, it's a hard question, man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe just been more confident to charge people earlier on, just a little bit earlier. It's just the earlier you get into it, the quicker you're gonna get to the like where you want to go, maybe. So yeah, just don't be afraid to just start doing paid jobs when you feel you've got at least a decent skill set. Just start trying to get your paid jobs from there on out, man. Yeah, definitely. It was a weird transition. In the sense that, yeah, it used to be just mates and you'd be working for the love of it, and you're still doing it for the love, but it is your bread and butter now, so you need to see it as a job. Yeah, like ultimately in the studio, it's very like a friendly environment still. You can still get along and still be matesy and stuff, but at the end of the day, you do need to have that little bit of separation, because unfortunately, with just pure clients, it comes down more to business, and you don't feel like inclined like, oh, I have to give them a discount, or I have to like do this on the cheap for them. So you just have to realize, like, even though you get along and they might be dope people, if you've met them purely through business, you can become friends, but you still need to maintain that, like, well, this is my bread and butter, this is my business, this is how I pay my bills. And I think even your mates that you might have been able to work for free in the past, now you're going to have to be like, look, man, this is how I make my money. Me and you are still mates, and outside of business, personal and business, you got to separate the two. I'll still catch up with you at the pub for a drink and we can chat, but that doesn't mean I can go to the studio and work on your song for free anymore. Like, if this was something I did as a hobby on the side, maybe I could, but like, this is how I pay my bills. And I think anyone that's truly your mate, or like even just like, a friend of you, will understand that, like, this is how you pay your bills. And if they're not willing to respect that and be like cool with paying you for your skills, then maybe they're not your mate. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, any real true mate will understand this is your business now and this is how you provide for yourself. So if they're not willing to pay that, like, yeah, well, fair enough. But then maybe they weren't your mate in the first place in some ways. Because if you go to anyone else that's not your mate, they're going to have to pay for that service. And it's kind of like the whole mates rates thing. I get it, but I also don't get it. Because when you want to support, if you were going to support any business, to me, wouldn't you rather support the business your friend runs, rather than being like, hey man, we've been mates for 5 years, do this one for half price. Like, nah man, like I've got 5 other people who want that slot today. They're going to pay me full rates. If you don't want to pay full rates, well, unfortunately, then I'm going to give it to them, because like they're going to help me pay my bills. And yeah, but like, yeah, you can still be friends when you clock off. You can still go get a pint with them. But yeah, they should be willing to like pay you for your services. And like, especially like us, we've gone and studied it. So you've got the degree behind you, the education, you've invested in equipment, studio time, like, yeah, studio space. Like, it costs money to get in this position too. And you need to make that back. We've got overheads on our head that we need to pay. So yeah. Now, it's not something I have to struggle with. Like, I'm fully confident that like this is what I do. I'm a sound engineer. It's paid my bills for 2 years. But beforehand, yeah, it was weird, I guess, like trying to say like I'm a sound engineer now, as opposed to be, because like a lot of people are like, what do you mean you're a sound engineer? But I think it comes down again to the portfolio and the reputation. Like, the more you do it, the more mixes you've done, you can be confident that like what you do is like, if you make money off it and you're confident that you provide a good like quality like service, not that it's just something like you've mixed in 5 minutes, you're like, yeah, I'm a mix engineer. Like, man, we've studied this thing for like 2 years. Essentially I've been doing it for 10 years, even though like not with the whole studying, but like it's taken time to learn all these skills, get all this equipment. And yeah, man, like, I don't know. You just got to jump in the deep end sometimes, I guess. And when you commit and you're like, no, I'm a sound engineer, that's my full-time job, or if it's a part-time job or whatever it is, you just got to embrace that. And I think the more you like are confident in your own abilities, like it comes across. Like, say you come to me as a client and you're like, hey man, do you think you can mix something for me? I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, I think I could do it for you, man. Like, that's not going to sell any confidence to your client. They're not going to want to come to you. Whereas you come in the door and be like, hey DINJE, like, I want you to mix a record. I'd be like, no worries, man. What kind of record are we approaching? I've mixed all these different subgenres. Like, I'm fully capable. We can get the record to what you want. That comes across as like, this is the kind of guy I want to go bring my record to. Like, if he's confident he can get it there, I'm confident he can. If you're not confident in your own ability, why should your client be confident in your own ability? Like, that's how I see it, I guess.